What's up, guys? Thomas Mott here. It is Friday, and stuff is still happening with the Philadelphia Eagles. We're going to jump into everything that happened yesterday, including an Andre Dillard injury, and them signing Trey Sermon, which is a very kind of weird situation. It might tie into how they feel about Miles Sanders, and of course, Dak Prescott running his mouth about the Dallas Cowboys and the NFC East. That's our big national story at the end of today's video. First, though, quickly, I do want to thank everyone who subscribed yesterday to my brand new show here. If you enjoy what you see, if you like the Philadelphia Eagles, if you like the NFL in general, go ahead and hit that subscribe button. Give this video a thumbs up as well. All right, let's go ahead and jump into, let's just call the big story of the day, and it's not the Trey Sermon news. The Sermon news is big, and a lot of people are breaking that down, commenting it on Twitter right now, but to me, the Andre Dillard news is a lot bigger, and it kind of is getting glossed over a little bit. Let's jump into what exactly is going on. Bleeding Green Nation has a very good write-up of this story right now. He has essentially suffered what they call a non-displaced fracture in his forearm. Now, if you're watching ESPN, that basically means that he broke his arm, which doesn't sound very good. He's going to be out for an extended period of time. Here is the overall write-up. Mike Garofalo on Twitter says, quote, Eagles tackle Andre Dillard suffered a non-displaced fracture in his forearm in practice today. Sources say further testing is needed to determine the best course of action and timeline for return, but the expectation is Dillard will be available for a majority of the season. And so we don't really know how long this is going to be. And they talk about how there's good news that that it's not a season-ending injury, but it will be an extended period of time. I'd expect a couple of games at least, because even though he's an offensive lineman and you can 100% wrap that thing and make a giant club in his arm, he's still going to miss an extended period of time for the Philadelphia Eagles. My first thought on this is I feel bad for Andre Dillard. I mean, I don't feel like Andre Dillard has ever gotten a fair shake to be a starting left tackle in the National Football League. Now, there's a reason, mainly because of the fact that you're looking at Jordan Mailata, who immediately won the spot and was much better and got a massive contract and is considered one of the best left tackles in the National Football League. But I still think Dillard can play, and I think that leading up to this, a lot of people expected Dillard to be traded at some point, maybe during the first couple weeks of the season, maybe at the end of training camp when teams, have evaluated their starting left tackles and realize our left tackle is just not that great, and so the trade value plummets. And I think that Philadelphia Eagle fans must come to a crossroads here where we accept the fact that Dillard is going to be another one of these first-round busts. You pair him with Jalen Reagor. Did you get some good use out of Andre Dillard? Yes, there were times he filled in last year. There were times when he has played well enough to be not a bust. However, where he was drafted in the first round a couple of years ago, you expect him to be the anchor left tackle of your football team for many, many years, and that's just not going to be the case. He'll be a free agent after this year. If they're able to trade him, I mean, they're going to try maybe at the deadline, but I doubt it. To me, it looks like they're going to go ahead, let him recover, keep him as a backup that way in case, the worst case scenario happens and you have an injury, you have a solid left tackle to be your backup, and then let him ride into free agency next year where he will sign with somebody and hopefully kind of restart his career and actually get the starting job that he always kind of, at least I thought he deserved to be at after being drafted. Now, in terms of the Eagles' backup option with Dillard out, LaRaven Clark was signed to the practice squad and can easily be elevated, and they consider him to be at least an option at left tackle. He's not Jordan Mailata, and if you were to lose Jordan Mailata and you have to use LaRaven Clark, it's definitely a big, giant downgrade. It would not be good for Philadelphia, but if it would be for just a couple of games, then you would, feel confident that Clark is going to be okay. It's that age-old adage that's been said this offseason. The Eagle backup offensive line could beat out or at least start for the giant offensive line, their number ones, because the Eagles' backups are just that good. So the Dillard injury, it's a bummer. It won't affect week one, barring an injury to somebody else, which, fingers crossed, knocked on wood, will not happen. It just stinks for him as a player because I think he can be a solid left tackle in the National Football League. The question really becomes, can he ever, be healthy enough for an entire season, and will he be able to find a football team that believes in him enough to give him a starting option here in the future? Okay, the other story that the Eagle Nation is absolutely going nuts over right now, and I think this is a little bit overblown, is the Trey Sermon signing. And there's a good write-up here on Bleeding Green Nation, where Philadelphia, they had an open roster spot, and they actually signed him to their active roster. I mean, this is not a practice squad addition. They're bringing the former, I guess you call him a Ohio State running back, but for me, he was an Oklahoma running back whenever I was at Baylor. I called a Trey Sermon touchdown back when I was the Baylor student play-by-play voice, but they claim him off their off of waivers onto the active roster, and now this creates a whole bunch of question marks in terms of what's going to happen with the Eagles running back spot. So quickly, just to give you the full read-up here, Sermon's an intriguing player for Philadelphia to take a chance on. At 23 years old, there's reason to believe the number 88 overall pick from last year's draft offers some untapped upside. He was a very productive player in college, 455 total rushing attempts for almost 3,000 yards and 26 touchdowns. Sermon also caught 48 passes for 486 yards and 3 scores, end quote. But he just didn't really do anything from a rookie running back perspective with the San Francisco 49ers. And this is kind of my big concern with him, is like, why didn't he make it in San Francisco? San Francisco is a runner's paradise from a running back setup from an offensive system. That's what they do best. And especially now with Trey Lance, you figure the running backs in that system are going to be really, really good and used a ton. Like, they have Deebo Samuel as their best receiver and Kittle, but that's a run-first offense. It's kind of similar to what Philadelphia wants to do. You know, they want to be a run-first offense, but also be able to beat you over the top with the passing game as well. However, if Sermon was unable to make it on that roster and they cut him straight up, like not even brought him over to the practice squad, what makes Eagle fans think he's instantly going to be a big impact player in Philadelphia? Now, listen, I hope that he can be, and I'm not saying that he's not going to be. I'm just saying, like, you have a lot of people ahead of you on the Eagles depth chart, which we'll look at here in just 1 second, who are going to get a lot more touches than Trey Sermon. And so, as usual, when Philadelphia signs a player like Sermon, someone who had a lot of potential, goes to a different football team, doesn't make it there, gets cut, and then signs to Philadelphia, we always go, oh my goodness, he's going to be, what a stud, what a pickup by Howie Roseman. And yes, it might be that, but it's more like 60% it won't, 40% it actually will. I want people to calm down here on this Trey Sermon news, because to me, it's just not necessarily that big of a deal, and I don't know how many reps he's going to be able to get in the end. Now, maybe this has to do with the concerns about Miles Sanders. As you look at the ESPN Eagle depth chart here up on your screen, Sanders has returned to practice as of yesterday, been dealing with a minor injury that kept him out basically every preseason game except the very first one, kind of tweaked the hamstring, I think, in that first preseason game. And so maybe this is simply them saying, hey, we don't trust Miles Sanders to be healthy for an entire season, so let's at least have some more depth at the backup running back spot. Remember, they still have Kennedy Brooks on the practice squad as well, but you kind of look at the depth chart here, they're going to go Sanders 1, Gainwell is going to spell him, and they love Boston Scott. Like, if you're telling me that Boston Scott's going to get less carries this year than Trey Sermon, I'd say you're crazy. They love what Boston Scott is able to do. They love him as a short down, third down running back, can go ahead and mix things up. He had the most touchdowns of any running back on the roster last year after Miles Sanders was able to go ahead and get it into the end zone. And so I like the Sermon signing. I have nothing against the Sermon signing, but the odds of us being back here, 9 months from now saying, man, Trey Sermon was the impact running back player, what a steal off the waiver wire, I think is a little bit overblown. Okay, final Eagles story for you. Go ahead and get into our national story of the day here on the Thomas Mott Show. The Eagles have announced their 7 captains for the 2022 season, and we'll touch on this briefly. There's not a lot to break down here. I mean, no shockers. Hurts is a captain. You had to make him one, regardless of how you feel about him. Now, I think that they feel very good about him, but even if he was struggling, they would still make him a captain for the optics. Kelsey's a captain, duh. Johnson's a captain, duh. Cox is a captain, duh. Graham's a captain, duh. Slay being a captain, I mean, it's great. I think it's good news overall, but he's not, it's rare. This is kind of the one shocker, if you will, because he's not a big vocal guy on the outside. He's more kind of a lead by example versus a lead by talking, but it's good to see him here. And Jake Elliott, who's quietly one of the best kickers in the National Football League, and one of the best years last year overall. Yes, he's not Justin Tucker, but people forget how great he is. What is interesting about the whole captain situation for me is that we can't forget that the Eagles still have some very good veterans on this team. The whole talk this year has been, the addition of Cam Jurgens and Jordan Davis, and then you have Nakobe Dean, and then you go ahead and sign A.J. Brown, you got Devontae Smith. Like, the young people are in focus, and rightfully so, because the young core is what takes you, many years from now to being an elite football team if they all progress to being, savvy veterans in the future. But you got to remember, Philadelphia has older guys who are still studs. Like, all the shows here, Lane Johnson, Jason Kelsey. And you can talk about some of the interior guys, Isaac Seumalo. You can talk about Milton Williams, who now is coming into being a veteran who could play some very good football this year. TJ Edwards is a older linebacker, not necessarily as young as the younger guys. We focused in this offseason on these young rookies and on these young players and new additions, but Philadelphia, they're a stacked football team because they have the whole gambit of players, the great veterans and the young up-and-coming stars, and it's good to see the captains, or in these, let's say, veterans, get their due diligence here, or their due rights to be captains here in 2022. Now, again, does a captain thing really matter in the end? Not necessarily. I mean, it's not going to affect us as fans, but it's good to see that Philadelphia has a lot of veterans who did well this preseason, did well this training camp, and were rewarded with that C on their chest. Okay, final, and let's just call it a National League story here, because the Dallas Cowboys, even though they're in Philadelphia's division, are the national story that everyone wants to go ahead and talk about. So Dak Prescott has been asked a lot about, the Cowboys and where they're going to be in the NFC East. As an Eagle fans, I think this is interesting to go ahead and read and comment on. I throw up the ESPN article here by Todd Archer. Quote, this is Dak. where we are right now, it's all excitement. It is. It's truly a privilege to be the quarterback of this team, be the leader of these guys, offense, defense, this coaching staff that we have. And yeah, especially with everything being said about us, you know what I mean? The lack of what we have. Keep writing, keep talking. We're ready to go play. And so, listen, you're not going to, bash Dak for saying that. He's 100% right. There's been a lot of talk, and it'll all be settled on the football field. But let's just be real about the Dallas Cowboys right now. Dak Prescott will have to have an MVP caliber season to even keep Dallas relevant this year in their own division, because Philadelphia is that much better in terms of an overall roster. And you're starting to see that in the national media. We talked about it yesterday. Teams people, I should say, are slowly starting to realize Philadelphia is absolutely stacked. But Dak is not wrong to say this, and not wrong to say that, we're going to prove some people wrong, but it's going to take him being, worth every penny of that $44 million deal. And if he doesn't, this is a 7-win Cowboy team. This is an 8-win Cowboy team. This is a losing Cowboy team that is not going to be relevant at all come December and January. Philadelphia should blow them out of the water both times that they play, barring Dak absolutely balling out. And so as you go through the rest of the NFC East and you think about what the Eagles are dealing with, yes, it's a stronger division than it's been the past couple of years, and yes, Dallas is still dangerous. I'm not trying to poo-poo them to be this 4-win football team, but all the media people out there who talk about the Cowboys this, Cowboys that every single year, they're starting to kind of waver a little bit looking at Philadelphia's roster versus looking at what the Dallas Cowboys roster is and looking at how Philadelphia did all these moves to get themselves in position to be successful this year, whereas the Dallas Cowboys did virtually none of that. And from an Eagles perspective, I think that's good news overall for Eagle fans. There you go. All the stories today here on the Thomas Mott Show. Again, if you're brand new to this channel, trying to be unique in terms of covering the Philadelphia Eagles, I want to just be able to get to the stuff that you guys want to talk about. I want it to be a high-quality video, and I want you guys to go ahead and enjoy every single show. And we're just getting started. A lot of changes are going to go ahead and come, but I want it to be something you've never seen or never listened to, I should say, from a show perspective. And so we're going to grow. We're going to take a lot of your comments. So if you guys want to comment down below, and of course, subscribe to help us get this channel as big as possible. All the time I really have for today on a Friday edition of the Thomas Mott Show, episode 2. Plenty more coming up next couple of days and weeks. You guys enjoy the rest of your weekend.